A Cursed Gift. Episode 1, The Strange Secret. The cock crowed long before dawn, but Oba was already awake. His body glistened with sweat from the night's dreams, dreams that always felt more real than the day itself. He dreamt of rivers running backward, of trees shedding their fruit only for them to roll back to their branches, of wrinkled faces smoothing into the beauty of youth. He would sit up, clutch his chest, and ask the silence the same question, why me? Oba was not like the other young men in Umuaka village. Where they were thin from farm work, his shoulders stood broad like the pillars of a shrine. His chest rose like a drum stretched tight with power, and his arms could carry more yams than a donkey. Women whispered when he walked by, their voices hushed but eager. Even married women, who usually kept their eyes cast down, found themselves stealing glances at his body. And yet Oba himself was quiet, humble, often withdrawing from the crowd like a man afraid of his own shadow. But the true story of Oba began one Harmattan morning, when the widow Momankechi fell sick. She was known in the village as the wrinkled mother of 6, bent from years of work and grief. People said her youth had been drained by hardship. She could barely walk without the help of a stick. That week, she was seen entering Oba's hut in the evening. By dawn, she stepped out with no stick, her face glowing, her body upright, her skin bright like the morning sun. The village erupted. Women gasped, children pointed, men muttered under their breath. Momankechi, the woman who had shuffled into old age, now looked like her own daughter. Her eyes sparkled, her cheeks were round again, and her voice sang with energy. "Eh, Momankechi, what medicine did you drink?" someone asked at the market. She only smiled, touching her lips with a finger, a secret gleam in her eyes. It did not take long before the whispers turned into a storm. They said Oba had the gift of turning old women young. They said his bed was not ordinary, that his body carried the mystery of rebirth. Some called it witchcraft, others called it a blessing from the gods. But every woman who looked at Momankechi that morning felt something burn in her chest, desire, greed, and desperation. Oba, meanwhile, kept to himself. He had not meant for it to happen. That night, Momankechi had come, begging him with tears. She said she wanted to feel alive one last time before death carried her away. Oba, against his better judgment, had given in. But he had not known that by morning, she would look years younger. When he saw her leaving his hut with no stick, he felt both terror and shame. The men of the village grew restless. "How can a small boy hold such power?" one elder grumbled. "If women can grow young again, what will become of us husbands? What use will we be?" But even they could not deny the evidence. Momankechi's transformation was a miracle, or perhaps a curse. By the second week, another woman came knocking at Oba's hut. This time, it was Madame Aduk, a wealthy trader from the neighboring town. She brought bags of cowries, cloths dyed in rich indigo, and a gold necklace she claimed was from across the seas. "Take it, my son," she said softly, her eyes shining like fire. "Just let me share a night with you." Oba refused at first, shaking his head. "I am not a medicine man. I cannot help you." But Aduk grabbed his hands and pressed them to her chest. "Please, Oba. I want to be young again. I will give you everything I own." And so, for the second time, Oba gave in. By morning, Aduk looked 10 years younger. Her skin glowed, her laughter rang through the village, and her rivals stared in envy. That day, she marched to the market in her finest clothes, announcing to anyone who would listen, "It is true. Oba is the fountain of youth." From that moment, Oba's life was no longer his own. Women began to line outside his hut at night. Some came secretly, covering their faces with cloths so their husbands would not know. Others came boldly, their voices shaking with desperation. "Oba, please. Just one night." Some offered money, others goats, baskets of yam, even land. The poor begged, the rich commanded, but all carried the same hunger in their eyes. Oba grew restless. At night, after each encounter, he would feel his strength draining, his chest tightening as though something was being stolen from him. He began to wake with pounding headaches and strange visions. His dreams became darker. He saw himself growing thin, his flesh melting like wax, while women around him danced, young and beautiful, laughing as he crumbled into dust. One night, after sending away 3 women who fought outside his door, Oba knelt in his hut, pressing his forehead to the cold ground. "Spirits of my ancestors," he whispered, "why have you cursed me with this gift? Am I a healer or a prisoner?" But the spirits gave no answer, at least, not yet. By the end of that moon cycle, Oba was no longer just a villager. He had become a secret, a legend, a treasure to be desired. Some women came from faraway towns after hearing the tale. They called him the river that runs backward. But with every night, with every woman, the shadow inside him grew heavier. And Oba began to fear that he was not saving lives, but losing his own. That was when the first true sign appeared, a dream unlike the others. He saw an old woman in white robes standing by a river. She pointed at him and said, "The more you give, the less of you remains. Oba, your gift is a curse. If you do not stop, the river will run dry before your time." He woke trembling, his bed soaked in sweat. Outside, the line of women was already forming. And so, the legend of Oba, the man whose manhood made women younger, began to spread across the land, a tale of power, desire, and an unseen curse waiting to reveal its true cost. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode.